Hi everybody, I'm Sue Ellen Clayton. Welcome to my channel where we'll be learning the tarot cards one card at a time. Today's card is number 19 in the Major Arcana, the Sun. I am using the Rider-Waite Tarot deck and you'll find the link below the video. I've also linked to the many books I've used for my research. In this video we'll discuss what the Sun means when it appears in a reading, the symbolism of the card, the meaning of the Sun when it is upright and reversed, including some examples from my life. And at the end, I'll provide you with some questions to help you better connect with the Sun card. So let's get started. The Sun is probably the happiest card in the Major Arcana. Nobody complains when it comes up in a reading. The Sun is featured prominently at the top of the card. She has 21 golden rays and one narrow black ray. Underneath the Sun are 4 sunflowers growing behind a gray wall. On a gray horse, we see a naked child with their arms outstretched. It is unclear if this child is male or female, so I will use female pronouns. She has golden hair and a wreath of victory consisting of 6 flowers with a red plume. This is the same plume that we saw in the Fool and the Death card. In her left hand is a large red banner. This is the same banner that we see in the final card, which is the World. This card shows that the child has completed her journey. Rather than being beaten down by events such as those in the Tower and the Devil card, she has made it through her past obstacles and arrived filled with joy. This card represents success, vitality, optimism, enthusiasm, overcoming obstacles, being able to see the truth, and finding our purpose in life. It's about celebrating your success and having a sense of childlike wonder, unencumbered by the problems of the past. So let's talk about some of the symbols in the Sun card. The Sun is featured prominently at the top of the card. While the Moon represents all things unconscious and hidden, as we saw in the Moon card, the Sun represents collective consciousness and being able to see clearly. It represents warmth, light, and energy. The Sun represents divine power. You can see the Sun looking down on the child. Just like the world would be dark without the Sun, our lives would be dark if we don't connect with Spirit. The Sun has 22 rays. 21 of these are obvious and correspond with the World card, the final card in the Major Arcana. But what about the missing ray? This represents the Fool, which has the non-number 0. His ray is represented by the squiggly line to the right of the Roman numerals. Underneath the Sun are 4 sunflowers growing behind a gray wall. The wall around the garden represents security and protection. The wall has 8 layers of bricks. These represent Buddhism's 8 practices that lead to enlightenment. The sunflowers symbolize growth, beauty, and strength. Sunflowers turn their faces to the Sun, which represents our search for enlightenment. The 4 sunflowers represent the 4 elements of air, water, fire, and earth that are the basis of the tarot deck and also required for life. They may also represent the 4 seasons or the 4 directions. Sunflowers grow in the earth. They represent having the optimism of the Sun grounded into the physical plane. The large Sun with the 22 rays represent the Major Arcana. The 4 sunflowers represent the 4 elements in the Minor Arcana. The horse represents purity and strength. The color gray represents innocence and lack of prejudice. It is the same horse that we saw in the Death card. Instead of bringing death, the horse in the Sun card brings life. The child is looking straight at us. In tarot, this is a sign that nothing is hidden. This is reinforced by the fact that she is unencumbered by clothing and the horse does not have a saddle or bridle. She has learned to manage her animalistic instincts. The child on the horse also represents the perfect meshing of openness with their animal nature. Her outstretched arms show innocence and playfulness. The child has learned the lessons from the past and is now free. She has golden hair. Blonde hair has been associated with angels and people who are beloved by God. On her head is a wreath of victory consisting of sun symbols, which are yellow circles with a red center. Very likely the wreath extends to the back of the head and there are 12 symbols. This represents the 12 zodiac signs. The zodiac signs were also represented on the belt of the Fool. The red feather represents vitality, and it certainly looks like the child is living her best life. This feather has been through quite a journey. We first saw it in the Fool. Next it appeared in the Death card, although it was wilting to show a lack of vitality. Now it's back in the Sun card. In her left hand is a large red banner. Like the feather, this represents vitality. Because it is in her left hand, it represents her subconscious. The banner appears to be huge. She can only manage it because of her inner strength. When the sun appears upright in a reading, it can represent clear thinking. You can now see everything that has been hidden by darkness and shadows. It can represent having a breakthrough or shining brightly, being the center of attention. This card can represent seeing the bright side, or it's time to share yourself with the world. It can also represent exuberance, experiencing joy, enlightenment, gratitude, or good health. It can also represent success, or that you have received your reward following a lot of hard work. And finally, it can literally mean the birth of a child. So an example from my own life. This card exemplifies how I felt when I graduated from college. I was so excited to graduate and be starting a job in the field I had studied. I had my own apartment. I felt great. Looking back, I was probably a little too open and naive, but it felt like I'd suffered through high school and university, and now I was charging forth into the world. When the sun appears reversed in a reading, it can represent disappointment, pessimism, burnout. After all, what happens when we get too much sun? You get burned. It can represent not moving forward, lack of success, delayed gratification, lack of enthusiasm, sadness, lack of clarity, being overconfident or overly optimistic, vanity, arrogance, or an inflated ego. You believe you can get away with anything. It can represent feeling pressure to always be cheerful and happy. It can represent that you need to stay positive. You need to look for the bright side of life. It can represent that things will get better, or it's time to find your inner child and bring her out to play. So an example from my own life. I was a self-employed writer for more than 30 years. Several years ago, I was working as a subcontractor for a guy who was extremely difficult and writing for an industry that I did not like. I was so focused on work that I'd stopped doing hobbies or really taking care of myself. After a couple of years, I pretty much lost my will to live. Because I'd always loved writing and was also my own boss, it never dawned on me that I was burnt out. But I was. So I stopped working for the guy and took some time off to recover. And I regained my vitality. So here are some questions for you to answer so that you can connect with the Sun card. Number 1, what are some examples of accomplishments from your life? Number 2, is anything blocking you from happiness? Number 3, what gives you energy? Number 4, do you make time for play? Number 5, could you benefit from leaving your ego behind? Number 6, do you feel pressure to always be on like the sun? Number 7, do you prefer to hide in the shadows and need to shine more brightly? Or number 8, do you have a plan to avoid experiencing burnout? I'd love for you to share your answers in the comments below. And please join me for the next video, which is card number 20, Judgment.